take a look at the headline of Michael Harriot's article in The Root yesterday. It reads, quote, "It turns out all those white woke allies were lying," end quote. And he makes that case in his article with some pretty damning statistics. Michael says, quote, "It was all a fad. White people love black people like they love TikTok dances and acid wash jeans and liberty and justice for all," end quote. Tonight, we're talking to Michael Harriot live about what happened to all those white allies and also the billions corporate America pledged to support Black Lives Matter. First, BNC correspondent Dre Clark takes a look at the big money promises.
George Floyd's death a year ago energized and ignited a worldwide movement calling for an end to police brutality. And corporations around America also declared enough is enough, pledging billions of dollars to civil rights organizations like Black Lives Matter, the NAACP, the National Urban League, and black colleges and universities. But a year later, have they produced on their multi-billion-dollar promise?
Some of them didn't really think through their pledges. They were just trying to get on the bandwagon so that they would be positively recognized.
William Cunningham is founder and owner of Creative Investments Research. The DC-based firm has been analyzing the pledge commitments over the last year.
This is the data that we've been tracking since last year, showing 232 corporations pledging $55.6 billion.
Among those companies and corporations, Amazon and PepsiCo, along with Apple, which has pledged $100 million to start the Racial Equity and Justice Initiative to help dismantle systemic racism and help historically black colleges and universities. And retail giant Target plans to spend $2 billion with black-owned businesses by the end of 2025.
We had the freedom to be able to look into the numbers and the data in a way that a lot of other institutions did not.
Cunningham says of the $55 billion pledged a year ago, only $250 million has actually been spent. Hazel Dukes is president of the NAACP's New York State Conference. She said at a recent meeting with other civil rights organizations, the question was raised, where's the money?
Their little money didn't hurt us. We still here. NAACP 112 years old. Urban League, Reverend Sharpton, we don't live off of them.
None of the corporations are legally liable if they don't pay. But Cunningham says there should be a consequence for failure to pay.
We think that you can make the case that if a corporation does not fulfill its Black Lives Matter pledge, that that's fraud also.
Michael Harriot, senior writer for The Root, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so in your article, you write about the protest last summer. You said, quote, "This multiracial outpouring of sympathy and solidarity transformed the country. Then white people went home and kept being white." Why do you think this happened? And given that the majority of people in this country are white, what does it ultimately mean for our ability to affect real change?
Well, I think I think what we saw last summer is kind of part of the repeating cycle that we always see. You know, we saw this during the civil rights movement where white people had a little bit of sympathy and then they went back to their lives because they don't have the investment in stopping police brutality that black people have. And when you have to make a choice, they're going to protect their property over black lives. And this is not some kind of hypothesis. We see in the polling data that the support for Black Lives Matter now is lower than it was before George Floyd was killed. There are fewer white people who believe that police disproportionately kill or hurt black people now than there was before George Floyd was killed. So, you know, we can look at the data and not even speculate on why white people do this. You know, the reality, the why doesn't matter as much as the reality does, that it exists and it's part of a cycle that keeps happening again. And, you know, I don't think that you should say, well, white people just don't care, we should never believe them. I just think that, you know, what we thought was we fooled ourselves kind of into thinking that this was a seminal moment that will change America forever when it is the America that it has always been.
And now, some of the numbers you talk about show levels of white support are lower than before last summer's protests. Why do you think that is?
I think, I think a lot of a lot of people, well, I can't say people, because when you parse the numbers, it shows that Black and every other ethnicity in America, their support went up. And it was just white people's went lower that uh, caused the support for Black Lives Matter to go lower. And I think part of it is that when they saw the reality of the anger and the protest and what you have to do to engage in meaningful reform, then they weren't willing to. It's like somebody saying you want to make $1 million. You say yeah, but when you have to actually
Hmm.
do $1 million worth of work, that's another story, right? And I think that's what happened, and that's why what we saw. And plus, the Republicans are pretty good at messaging. So how they demonized Black Lives Matter, how they contradicted it with this message of law and order. We saw that the guy who demonized it most, Donald Trump, the most Americans voted for him. More Americans voted for him than any president ever. So it's part of messaging and a part of the cycle that we've continued to see throughout American history.
So now, Michael, corporations were increasingly pledging their financial support to Black communities, but they actually donated less than 1% of what they pledged to donate to racial justice causes, according to the review done by the Creative Investment Research. The founder says that that's equivalent to fraud. How can we hold corporate America to account?
Well, I don't know if we can, right? Because corporations always lie. I don't know if corporations could exist if they didn't lie to consumers and lie to the public, right? I think Black people can hold them accountable by not spending money with the corporations who lie. I don't know if it's a legal way that we can hold them responsible, but and I don't. The problem with that corporations thing is not. We're not upset by corporations who don't support Black Lives Matter because they could have said nothing, right? Nobody was at the protest saying, "I wonder what Target's going to do." I'll be glad when
Right.
Anheuser-Busch gets here and show. If they volunteered their support, because I remember once when I was working for a corporation and it was a summer job, and my job was to clean out this warehouse, and I went into the warehouse, and there was a warehouse filled with Betamax VCRs. And I couldn't understand, like, what are all these Betamax doing? And they said, well, it's just risk reduction. When something pops, you buy both versions and you keep the version that consumers like. And that's kind of what they did with Black Lives Matter, right? Like they saw this movement starting up from the ground, and they said, well, we'll jump on that bandwagon because just saying something to Black people doesn't make any difference. And then they stored those promises in the warehouse just like a Betamax VCR because it doesn't really affect the bottom line.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Michael Harriot, it's always a pleasure to get your insight on these types of issues. Senior writer for The Root, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
All right.